There we go. Let's try this out. Okay. And a little here. Careful. There we go. That's off to a somewhat decent start. All right. Hi there. Welcome once again, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday. This, of course, is a tradition that a lot of YouTube cooking channels have been doing for the past several years, where we do a cast iron video on Wednesday. Cooking, cleaning, identifying, or just talking about cast iron. Why? Because we love cast iron. We got it in our blood. Fools that we are, or at least that I am. Excuse me one moment. Ugh. Come on, don't want to spill this. And there's a start. It looks like I got another big chunk to break up here. That's okay. There we go. Big enough? All right. Oh, yeah, Graham, we're going to get this all over the place. All right, maybe I'll move it into the sink. That might work. Okay. Great way to start a cast iron video, isn't it? Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious what I'm doing, in that this will eventually be brine. There we go. And anyway, other than getting ice chips all over the place, boy, I'm glad I live by myself. This is also an excuse to bring out one of my favorite toys here. This thing here, by the way, is not cast iron, but it is very heavy and solid steel. This was one of those treasures I found, well, flea marketing, and in fact, I found it at the flea market just outside of Binghamton. I was off on a camping trip, and I realized I had forgotten my tent stake hammer, which was an excuse to go by a flea market and go by that really nice flea market off of Binghamton and look for a cheap hammer, because I'm a cheapskate. And lo and behold, what did I find for $4 but this? If you look carefully here, this thing here actually says, what does it say? Combination tool with a patent pending and a date of 1928. And the other side says Losey Manufacturing Company from Grove, Kentucky. So yeah, for $4, you better believe this is a lot better than any cheap hammer. A friend of mine identified this, in fact, that this is most likely to be a horseshoe tool. So be that as it may, it's a really good hammer, as you can see. All right, but anyway, other than that though, on to the cast iron. Yes, because thank you, as always, everybody, for showing up. As I mentioned, we've been doing this now for a good, well, 2.5 years, and it's really nice to see familiar faces here on this channel. Hello, as always, to Kimberly Miller and Cynthia Wesley. Cynthia, I did get your photos, by the way. It seems that you found yourself a really nice Chicago hardware foundry skillet. Boy, you should share those folders with the other, those photos with the other persons here, so that they can see the hammered lid on that pan you found. Yeah, you're not cheap, you're frugal. Yeah, that's a good word for it. So, and hello everybody else, Nicious River Catfishing, Rick Stumbow, and Cast Iron Fanatic, and Billy Lee Lawman, and Joe Brown, and new people. I'm not sure if I recognize Joe Brown, so thank you very much for showing up here tonight on Cast Iron Wednesday, because as the title mentions, you know, normally the first Cast Iron Wednesday of the month, I've been wanting to do a cast iron discussion. However, this is an exception because it's time to start preparing corned beef. After all, 2 weeks from this coming Friday, guess what it is? St. Patrick's Day, which means, of course, it's corned beef and cabbage day. And any excuse to have corned beef is a good one. I mentioned I'm starting this 2 weeks in advance, but you don't have to. But the main reason why I'm doing this 2 weeks in advance is because you can make your own homemade corned beef in about a week. I'm doing this 2 weeks in advance, largely as well, to hopefully inspire you folks, yes, that's you folks watching this, to give it a try and actually try making your own corned beef. I fell in love with homemade corned beef the first time I tried it several years ago. Homemade corned beef is, well, what can I say? Store-bought corned beef is good. I mean, anybody knows that. You can get some corned beef at the store, but like everything else, the price has been going up. But nonetheless, store-bought corned beef is good, but homemade corned beef is just so much better, especially when you make it with your own spices and really flavor it the way you want. So once I tried making homemade corned beef, I did not turn back, and it's been kind of like my obsession to really try to push this and really encourage folks to give it a try and make your own homemade corned beef. For instance, one cast iron channel that I follow, the Backwoods Gourmet, he did a corned beef and cabbage the other day, which looked great. And he used store-bought corned beef. But that's kind of the point, is that it's really not hard, and I encourage you to give it a try. And so that's why, again, you've got about a week or so really to look into getting it together, if that's what you want, so that you'll have everything ready to brine for about a week or so. All we really need to do, what happened to the light? All we really need to do is is to put a brine together. Yeah, exactly like your Thanksgiving turkey brine. But actually, corned beef is much older than Thanksgiving turkey. So yeah, you simply put it in a brine and you let it rest for about a week in the brine. And that's it. And what's more, this is easier than brining a Thanksgiving turkey because it's smaller. You can put it in a bag and you can just put it in the back of the refrigerator. Well, for most people, it's smaller. I kind of went overboard and got myself a whole brisket, and that's what we're going to be doing tonight. So, one second. I'm going to adjust this light here. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, there we go. Okay, now where do you find the spices? Okay, it's time now to start playing with cast iron, and I will answer your question as well while we bring out. Here's one I've had. God, it's been about a couple of years already. Hard to believe. The BSR number 10 12.5-inch skillet. And the reason why I'm using a bigger pan, let's turn on the heat. Oh, I don't need to, actually I probably should have started heating it up when this video began, unfortunately, because I need to heat it at kind of like a low heat. We don't want this thing to be blasting hot. But the reason why I did this, I'm using the big pan, is because I took out a triple batch of spices here. So yeah, because as I said, I'm doing a whole brisket here, so it's like I'm doing triple the amount of spices that you normally need. So the question of where do you get the spices? Well, first thing you need to do, of course, is look up a recipe for homemade corned beef that appeals to you. Some of them have a very simple recipe that's really not much more than salt, pepper, and maybe a couple of other things, like coriander, for instance. I went for a somewhat more elaborate recipe, and so as a result, I've got some fun things in here, like juniper seeds, mustard seeds, coriander seeds. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I mentioned this on my Facebook. You know, it's like when you go to a foreign market, it's like for things like coriander seed, for instance, there's no such thing as a small package. This huge thing here cost about $5, and I'll bet that's, well, it's going to last me, I don't know, the rest of my life, and it's probably the amount that you would pay for a tiny little dinky thing of coriander seeds at Wally World. So the question you asked of where do you get the spices, I would say look locally. If you can find yourself a nice foreign market, whether that's a Brazilian or a Hispanic market or a Chinese market or an Indian market, that is the place to go to look for spices like this. The spices they have definitely usually come in bulk, and they're usually a lot cheaper. I mean, you could go to some place like Wegmans, for instance, and they will probably have it, but in smaller amounts and larger prices. Here's one case where going to Wally World probably is not going to get you a lot of the spices that you need, but I would very much encourage folks, this is a good excuse as well to go out of your way and try something different and try a foreign market. And while the cat, okay, I've talked enough at this point. Besides, this thing here is beginning to heat up, but I've got at least a couple of minutes or so. So finally, let's do a little. Let's say hi to everybody again, like Papa, Cynthia Wesley. You know our weather is going to get crazy again. Oh, I know that as well. John Sir 5, there are several Asian markets here and Mexican. Yes, exactly. That's the whole point. As I said, look up a nice recipe on the internet for homemade corned beef. Find something that appeals to you, and that'll give you an idea of what to look for spices. I mean, besides, a number of these spices, even if you don't see them at Wally World, they're still everyday common spices, like, for instance, coriander seeds, for instance, or black peppercorns, or bay leaves, or cinnamon sticks. What did I use for here? This anyway. I've got my recipe here, and what I have here for my ingredients. Let me bring that up here as quickly as I can. Oh, come on. Corned beef and cabbage. Come on. Thank you. Okay, what I used, and I'm probably a little more elaborate than most, unfortunately. I used allspice berries, juniper berries, white mustard seeds, coriander seeds, fennel seeds, red pepper flakes, some whole cloves, black peppercorns, cardamom pods, bay leaves, and oh yeah, a stick of ginger, which in fact, you're right, I better pull that out of the fridge right now. So most of those ingredients are probably stuff that you're already familiar with, for that matter, so it's really not that exotic. I would say the stuff that's probably the most exotic that folks may, if not have difficulty finding, but something that you may actually have to take a trip or two to find, would probably be the juniper berries, and what would the other one be? Probably the cardamom pods, more likely. So break off some of this as best as we can. There we go. And nice and simple. And the nice thing is, don't even need to peel this, because this is really just for, again, I'm just going to be toasting this in a cast iron pan along with all of those other spices so it can go into the brine. So I don't even need to peel this. All I should really do is take my nice big knife here. I'll be talking about this knife, is just cut it in half, and that's probably all I need. Maybe I'll do it in quarters. That should be more than enough. The rest of the prep work I did already, as I mentioned here. I mean, yeah, stuff like bay leaves, these cinnamon sticks. Again, I got peppercorns in here. So the juniper berries, as I said, that may be a little tricky to find. But then I guess the other thing is that if you absolutely can't find it, well, then we'll just leave it out, because it's not going to ruin your corned beef. All of these things add a little bit of flavor and make the brine more interesting, but none of it is going to ruin your corned beef. So there we go. Making the brine is very easy. There's one other thing, though, about the brine that we need to consider, of course, and that's whether or not to use curing salt. But we will get to that in a minute or so, as it's time to start playing with the cast iron. Just throw in these spices here. Oh, and those pieces of ginger as well. Like I said, I've got 3 times the amount of spices here that I would use for a typical 5 pound or so brisket. So don't think you have to go overboard like I'm certainly doing here. You know, one thing I should probably do is try eh, breaking these cinnamon sticks here. But anyway. So yeah, well, thank you, Chris McGee, and I hope you find this entertaining. That's the best I can say. And what did Rick D do where he should buy a lottery ticket? It sounds like you must have made a good score here. Got a lot. Oh, I got a Rick Stumbow got a Lodge 10, 3 and 2 skillets at $6.97 each. Oh, nice. So you got them on discount. Well, that's not bad at all, and definitely worth looking at and worth getting. By the way, what I'm doing here is simply, I'm simply toasting these spices here. I don't want to burn them, of course, which means, of course, you've got to keep them moving constantly. But in about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so, we're going to start hearing these spices start going snap, crackle, and pop. And that's when we know that they're done. So other than that, it's just a matter of keeping them moving until we get to that right point. You actually don't even need to toast the spices, but anybody who's done this will know this really brings out an intense flavor. You know, it magnifies the flavor. And I can, excuse me, and I can already smell it too. So definitely toasting the spices, if you have time and would like to make the effort, is something that I am also highly recommending here. And while we're at it, let's check out here as well. Would roasting the spices help with flavor for making pickles? I'm not an expert pickle maker, but I would think so. You may be right about roasting the spices for that matter. I would think then, in that case, you probably just have to pop them into like a 400-degree oven for a few minutes. I have not done that yet. I have done the old-fashioned method of toasting the spices here, and besides, it's fun, and it gives me an excuse to move a spatula around in this big cast iron pan. So this is kind of like what I do. K Clock, I actually have juniper berries in my pantry. I might actually try this. Never made corned beef from scratch. Well, please do. That, as I said, that's kind of the reason why I'm excuse me. Yeah, this is definitely giving off an odor. Why I am encouraging this, because the end results are just so much better. I mean, granted that when St. Patrick's Day comes, especially in the days just before St. Patrick's Day, that's usually when the supermarkets have their sales on corned beef, in which you can get it, well, at probably the cheapest price you could get it the entire year. Costs of everything have gone up, of course, and so typically we're seeing like maybe a 3-pound corned beef point brisket, which is considered to be less, lower quality than the flat cut. Typically, we're seeing at least $20 for a 3-pounder of that kind. Although the price usually drops around this time of year, I should really be careful. I'm getting these things all over the place. So that I remember a couple of years ago, corned beef was on sale at the store for as little as $1.50 a pound. And well, if that's the case, well, go for it. And maybe even pick up 1 or 2 extras as well so that you can use it, well, after St. Patrick's Day. But I still recommend giving this a try anyway, even once, just to see how much you enjoy it. And I'm betting you will enjoy it. But even if you don't, well, there's always, at least you'll know that you tried it. That's the excuse that I use most of the time. I'm learning how to. Didn't look, oops on me, we'll look after this. Oh yeah, how's Papa Dan's eyes doing? Question. Papa, last evening, Debbie was okay, but had been to the doctor, a little under the weather. Well, best of luck to her. And let's see what else we have here. Did you get the, no. Super lucky to get a match set and lid. Yeah, exactly. I'm already starting to hear a pop or two. This is not taking long. Oh, wait a second. I just realized yet again This is my first time toasting spices on a gas stove. So, excuse me. Definitely the odor of this is, well, it's dry more than anything else, I think. I think that's why I'm, yes, it is kind of making me cough. I will admit that. It's kind of irritating my throat. Not my sinuses, more like my throat. But that's not really a big deal. So from the sound of it, I would say these spices will probably be done in probably like a minute or so. I might even want to turn the heat down because I don't want these things to burn. Yeah, I'm still getting used to this gas stove about 6 months later. Oh, but yeah, let me see if I can get the mic close enough for you to hear this. Oh boy. Excuse me, that's definitely aromatic. However, there's no smoke coming from this. I mean, you can see the pan yourself. So no, I'm not burning them, but it's definitely giving off an odor. Although now that I say that, I'm seeing a wisp of smoke. I'd say this is probably a sign that these things are likely done. So let's turn off the heat. I mean, yeah, if it's smoking, yeah, take it off the heat. Yeah, boy, where did how could I ever figure that one out? Okay, let's move this over here. Where did I just put that spatula? Okay, wow, yep, definitely time for the gloves already. Where the heck? I am not thinking. Here we are. Here is my pot holder. Let's get these things off the heat and into the bowl. Anyway, that sure didn't take long. As I said, this was my first time doing this on a gas stove. And as a result, if I remember right, on the electric stove, it would usually take me anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes or so. I doubt this took anywhere near that long. Heavy pan, I've got to adjust. There we go. I think we got it now. There, much better. And now from this, one other thing. I'm going to reserve maybe about a third of these spices. I'm going to put these things aside here. Probably including a cinnamon stick, a couple of these bay leaves. Boy, these are big bay leaves. A couple of the cardamom pods. And then let's just dig right in. Reason why I'm doing this is when I'm going to cook the corned beef with. You know, when it's actually time to cook it. You know that microscopic spice packet that they usually serve that they usually use for you to cook the corned beef when it comes with the corned beef brisket? Well, compare it to this and see what the difference is. So yeah, that's one reason what I mean about how homemade corned beef is just so much better. Because now that we've done that, we get to go to part 2 here. I like Big Bay, and I cannot lie. Oh yeah, some other spices may deny. Oh, tell me about it. Yeah, that's the other thing. I went to that foreign market here in the Binghamton area. I got the largest bay leaves I think I have ever seen. I mean, seriously, those things must have been at least 6 inches long or more. So the next thing I need to do would be well, obviously, to start the brine. And here's the easy part. You just do this and bring it to boil and boil it for, oh, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so. And that's why I was chopping up all this ice to cool off the brine as quickly as possible. And because I have all of this ice, I don't even need a lot of water here. You need enough really to boil all these things, so probably going to go for 2 quarts. And so here we go. Now that we've done that, on comes the heat. Okay. And so far, so good. Okay, now I finally have a chance to look at some questions and comments here. Please throw them at me, folks, regarding this, or really regarding anything regarding cast iron. Corey Clark, it was 57 degrees today. Yeah, I know the feeling. It got to almost about 50 here in New York as well, and yet they're talking about, you know, that big, huge storm that's going across the country. Apparently, it's going to hit us by Friday, and we may have up to 10 inches of snow by Saturday morning. Yep, definitely we're getting close to spring here. You can certainly tell that. I'm sorry, what's happening? Is my microphone having trouble? Has to do with the microphone that he's using here. Sound is breaking up on mine. Okay. All right. Let me adjust the microphone a little bit. Does this sound any better, folks? Please comment about the sound here. Okay, and yeah, thank you as well. Yeah, Papa Dan. Now I can tell there's a wall there. Okay, well, it'll improve. I mean, if nothing else, at least it's been done, and now all you really need to do is recover. So, never heard of toasting spices. Oh, that is an old tradition. I learned about it myself as well, and again, this is another one of those things. When I started doing it, I did not look back. I don't toast spices every time, really, just for special occasions. You know, like making corned beef, for instance. So. Where is number located inside CHF lid? Towards the outside edge? Yeah, that's actually a good question. And I hope Cynthia can answer that. Yeah, no, because I have unfortunately never owned a CHF pan, and I really don't know about them quite as much as I know about, say, Birmingham Stove and Range, for instance. However, definitely the... Okay, yeah, exactly. Yes, that's why I have the microphone here attached to my necklace. But definitely the hammered pattern on that lid especially would suggest this is Chicago Hardware Foundry. They had a very elaborate hammered pattern on their pans. So yeah, I would say Cynthia made herself a real score there. Yeah, the CHF lids I have are near the edge. Should be large numbers. Yeah, CHF, they put their size number, and I believe they always used a 2-digit size number, and I think the first one was usually an 8 for some reason. I don't know the reason why they did that, but obviously it would, well, they would have had reasons for it. Size is marked on the edge of the lid. That is definitely different, really, from any other foundry, that's for sure. So, okay. And while we're at it here, I had mentioned one other thing. Now, into this brine here, we are going to be throwing all of these spices. I also have a cup of salt, half a cup of brown sugar, and as I mentioned, curing salt. You know, this Prague powder, or this pink salt here. And I guess I should probably say a word or two about that, because, you know, these days, especially where people are all concerned about how healthy and how safe it is to use certain ingredients, there's the question, of course, of nitrites or nitrates in the Prague powder. Well, that's why I'm using as low an amount as possible in this. Once it goes into the brine, I'm then going to be pouring it into this big bucket full of ice that I have here, and ice, and that will in turn help to dilute it in a lot more water as well. And plus the fact that I only do this once a year, so it's not like I'm going out of my way to overdose on nitrates. So in addition, you know, most of the bacon that they sell at the store these days, even though it is definitely cured, most of it is cured without nitrates. So, so there's definitely nowhere close to any kind of a you know, a danger level by using a little bit of this in this brine here. So that's why I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, it's really going to be just as simple as this. In fact, I think we're probably at that point already where if it's not at a boil, yeah, okay, I can start this and then we will bring it to a boil. That's the best I could say. So we get all of these spices and we just simply mix them in, nothing to it. And then from there, have a couple of other ingredients to put in. And that would be 1 cup of salt. I checked in regards to this in that the usually they say to use kosher salt. I'm using regular table salt here, and I looked it up, and the difference here is that if you're using regular table salt, you should use half the amount of kosher salt. So this recipe calls for 2 cups of kosher salt, and that's why I'm using 1 cup of salt. Meanwhile, into that, we also include, I think I can even turn this up a little bit, also include plop, half a cup of brown sugar. And we will mix this in nicely. Yeah, any brine should include portions of salt and sugar, because if you use just salt, it's way too salty. All right, I made that mistake once with a bean brine. Never again. And now, of course, for the Prague powder, which, as I said, is going to be diluted even more once we mix it into that big bowl of ice there. And I'm using only a little bit more than 1 tablespoon of this stuff. So we're talking like 4 teaspoons. 1, do this right, 2, 3, and 4. And as I said, it's concentrated right now, but that's why, again, my plan is to dilute it. And we will mix it all together. And we're just going to bring it to a boil, or bring it to the boil, as they like to say. And then we'll let it boil for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes before we go to the actual brine. Okay. Cynthia Wesley, I'll be sitting out waiting on Corey. I've been waiting on the mailbox. Okay, yeah, I hate autocorrect. Okay, it sounds like somebody had a fun autocorrect adventure here. Is that a cup of regular salt or curing salt? That was a cup of regular table salt. I use iodized salt. I don't have any problem with that. As you saw, I measured in the curing salt just only 4 teaspoons of that. Way, way less than a cup of curing salt. I was not going to do that, no. So, yeah, I already explained how I'm trying to be careful with the nitrates, and so far it's worked out pretty good. Oh, congratulations on 6 months. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, tell me about it. You know, you were having hell with the paperwork. Yes. Oh, I remember that all too well. Yeah, there was a lot of things about that place, unfortunately, that were hell. Not to mention, I think I told you, at least I hope I told you folks, that it all started at just about the beginning of June last year, when just out of the blue, an eviction notice showed up on my apartment door. And it gave me 2 months until the beginning of August to move out. And that eviction notice did not provide any reason for it. The reason on that, the lines on that eviction notice that stated the reasons why were blank. I had to call up the landlord to say what's going on, and the only answer that they gave me was, he wants the owner of the building wants the apartment back. And that's the only official explanation I ever got from that. My theory was that they were probably going to kick everybody out of that small building I was living in, refurbish the entire building, and then sell it as so-called luxury apartments, which would probably rent for at least 3 times what I was paying for. I wonder if that brine mix would be good for smoking meat. Well, I don't see why not. As I mentioned, I have the recipe on my website, motomac.com, or you can look it up as Cast Iron Chaos. And it is quite simply a recipe that's called corned beef and cabbage in a cast iron pot. And I'll say again, I know you folks have heard of all of these spices. Some of them, as I mentioned, may be a little tricky to get, but not impossible. I mentioned already allspice berries, juniper berries, mustard seeds, coriander seeds, fennel seeds, red pepper flakes, whole cloves, whole black pepper cloves, cardamom pods, bay leaves, and a piece of ginger, and some cinnamon sticks. Now, in fact, if you are a regular smoker, beef smoker, or meat smoker that is, you probably already know about a number of those spices, especially the coriander, because yeah, that's the other thing. Once this corned beef is done, you know what you can do? You can go and make the world's greatest meat, and that would be pastrami. And of course, to do that, you definitely have to smoke it. So, but yeah, I mean, if you want to try using this to smoke some meat, I'd say go ahead. And for that matter, there are folks I know who, instead of boiling their corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day, they put it in the smoker or on the grill, and I don't blame them one bit. Oh, that's the other thing that I say every year on St. Patrick's Day. Don't boil your corned beef and cabbage. Slow cook it in your cast iron. You will get so much of a wonderful flavor if you make your corned beef and cabbage that way rather than just by boiling it. So definitely you want to give that a try there. I think the fire is under the pot, but I could be wrong. Oh no, there's definitely fire under the pot. No question about that. Let me show you right now. Let's do this right. So yeah, definitely the flame is going. So as I said, I'm just waiting for it all to come to the boil. Yeah, I use the smoker a lot, but only a very basic brine. Well, I'd say give it a try. I mean, that's the best I could say. Go for it, because it is taking a chance, especially since, there we go again, corned beef is so expensive. I was lucky on the brisket, and I managed to find it this year at $4 a pound. And this came from a nice meat market too. So it's not, so again, I did not go to Wally World for this. I know I'm always bashing Wally World, and as everybody knows, there are good reasons to bash Wally World. In fact, I never buy my raw meat at Wally World. I always go to the local supermarket for that. Not only is it better quality, you can usually get a better price. You know, Wally World, always low prices, always. When it comes to things like fresh produce and meat, no, really, go shop local for that. And Joseph Ortiz, I would recommend when filling up a measuring cup, use a spoon to fill it, as scooping with the cup can cause the measurements to be off. You will be increasing the volume. You are probably right about that, actually. So this is why I use recipes that measure in weight. Again, I can only agree with you on that. And technically, you know, I should have weighed out that curing salt. But I really feel that the amounts are just so minuscule that it's not a big deal. Hello, Louis J. Cast Iron Cooking. Welcome again to Cast Iron Wednesday here, and we're looking forward to your Cast Iron Thursday. So our Wally World is a seriously sketchy area. I don't shop there. I'd worried about getting mugged. Yeah, I don't blame you at all. Hash browns with corned beef and a fried egg, then cheddar cheese melted over the top. Oh yeah, we're talking corned beef hash here. So okay, yeah. Once this brine is done, is ready here, I'll be able to break out the brisket. and I'll show you what we're doing here. Did I miss it? Well, no, I'm not cooking corned beef tonight. We are just beginning to prepare corned beef, and in fact, that's what we have showing right now here in the Magnolite Dutch oven. We've got the brine, which has not yet come to the boil, unfortunately. And yeah, definitely I've got the heat up, but it should really be doing that within just a couple of minutes or so. Yeah, just getting started, exactly. I've got the spices there. The spices were toasted in the good old BSR number 10 skillet here. And now we are just bringing them into to a boil here, along with some salt, some brown sugar, and a little bit of curing salt. Because curing salt is what gives the pink color to the meat. It is meant as a preservative, and that's really the whole point there. We're talking like back during in the days before they invented refrigerators. So of course, preserving meat was very, very important. And then for that matter, that's really where spices came from. It's like you wanted to not only to preserve your foods so it doesn't spoil, but also to help it taste better too, especially since a lot of things were probably partially spoiled by the time we got down to actually cooking them. And meat especially was one of them. And that's one reason why they came up with this curing brine or corning it, which, again, that's why there's no corn in corned beef. Rather, it's the corning process, which is where you simply brine it for several days. And then that helps to preserve it because, yeah, more than once things have happened and I was not able to take the corned beef out of the brine in time. In fact, once I had it in the brine in the back of my refrigerator for a month, and by the time I took it out of the brine, it was fine and it cooked wonderfully, and I had some great corned beef there because that's the whole point of the curing salt. It's a preservative to keep it from spoiling. I mean, no way can you keep regular meat in the back of your fridge for a month, but if you keep it in the brine like that, it worked just fine. And again, that's the whole point there. I can hear that that this is finally getting close to the boil here. The sound that it makes just before we finally get the steam coming out of the pot. So I still have time to get there before you make the corned beef. Well, you've got 2 weeks, for whatever that's worth. But like I said, that's why I'm doing this tonight. Because once this thing goes into the brine, technically you only need to brine it for about 5 days to a week. I'm doing this 2 weeks in advance because, well, that helps to get more flavor into the corned beef. And also, as I already said, I am doing my best to encourage people to give it a try. Here we go. There we go. Now we're at the boil here. So from this, all we really need to do is boil it for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so. But I'm encouraging folks to really give this a try and make your own homemade corned beef. And that's what I mean. You've got 2 weeks to do it. And since you only have to brine it for maybe about 5 days to a week or so, that means you've got a week at least to put the ingredients together. And that is, I mean, all I can do is encourage you to do it because there is a cost involved, of course. One, you got to get your own meat. Oh, that also reminds me. Anybody who was here last year knows that we had that big, the big food shortage that was going on last year. And I could not find beef brisket last year. Could not find it. And so instead of using brisket, I ended up using a much cheaper cut of meat. I think, in fact, I just used top round. And it turned out just fine. So if you want to save some money, or even if you feel this is an experiment and you don't want to spend all this money on, on something as expensive as brisket, get yourself a cheaper cut of meat, like I said, like top round, for instance. Get yourself a roast beef, and brine that and make some corned beef out of it, because it is still beef, and I certainly didn't regret it, and neither will you. Oh yeah, well, yeah, these traditions here, that's not only because I fell in love with corned beef when I tried it, but, I mean, homemade corned beef, that is, but I've got personal reasons that I'm not going to say in public that March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, is an anniversary of a certain event that occurred in my personal life that I'm not, as I said, I'm not saying in public. But that's another reason why it's something that I celebrate. And yeah, so it's funny that it happened to fall on St. Patrick's Day, but it did. So there's an excuse to really celebrate, even though I'm not Irish. I've already said I'm more of Italian heritage. However, as they say as well, everybody is Irish on St. Patrick's Day. And then, of course, there's the old joke that the guy tells his girlfriend, got any Irish in you? Want some? And that's as far as I'm going to go there. I use beef brisket to make pastrami. Yes, that's the whole point. You can certainly do that. The sellers I'm referring to, one lives there and the other is from here. He coached around WM. Okay. Anyway, well, we have to wait until the weather, yeah, and then my yard is going to look like Woodstock. Yeah, that's the part that worries me. Well, on the other hand, now that I'm in my new home, I may actually be able to host some guests. So, yeah, I already promised my friends I'm going to have a housewarming party eventually once I'm finally all settled in. And from the looks of it, that may very well come by this spring or summer. Well, that's something to look forward to. I'm Irish, but enjoy all foods. Yes, exactly. Historically, brisket was the cheapest cut back in the day. Yeah. Folks may know the story of where corned beef and cabbage came from. You know, it did not come from Ireland. It came from New York City. And if you go to Ireland any time of the year, including St. Patrick's Day, and you look for corned beef cabbage, they're going to give you a funny look. And because a lot of folks don't know what it is. Well, maybe they do now because, you know, of course, TV and everything like that. But it is, yeah, the story goes that maybe around the 1800s or so, it's like in New York City, the Irish community wanted to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and they usually celebrate it with, I think it would be pork. That's usually what they make their dishes with. However, pork was expensive, and so rather than doing that, they went to their Jewish neighbors in the neighborhood just next door or something like that, and instead got corned beef, because in those days it was a lot less expensive. Prices certainly have changed now, that's for sure. I mean, it's like no beef is cheap anymore, unfortunately. So yeah, you may very well be able to save some money by making your own homemade corned beef. Maybe not much. On the other hand, as I've mentioned already, the quality is just so much better. And that's certainly why, again, I can only encourage you to give it a try. All right, there we go. So now that we've done that, all right, everything is softened and it should be mixed in and dissolved, especially the curing salt. And I'll say again, this is kind of like a concentrated brine right now anyway. Let's take off the heat. And we will move over now. I think I better keep this in the sink just so that there's no, so that I don't spill it all over the place. Who, me? Why would I ever think of doing something like that? Let's try this angle. There we go. As I get out my gloves and see if we can do this, especially since I still have this big chunk of ice here. In fact, let me hit this chunk of ice a little bit more. There we go, that helps. Oh yeah, I showed this tool off at the beginning of the video. This is a combination tool, it actually says on it, and a friend of mine identified it as a horseshoe tool. You can do pretty much everything for shoeing a horse with this. All I know is this was a wonderful $4 score at a at a really good flea market. So I certainly have no complaints about using that. And now, finally, I've talked enough. Let's get out the gloves. There we go. And here comes the brine. My hope is that this will cool off the brine as well as dilute it. There we go. In fact, it looks like we've got just about the right amount there. Nice. Yeah, dig out the rest of these spices here. You know, like I said, I kept it in the sink, especially so that it wouldn't spill all over the place. That actually turned out very well, because once this thing cools off, then I'll be able to put the brisket in right away. Yeah, obviously we have to cool this thing off because we don't want to start cooking the brisket, not until St. Patrick's Day. I figure if we just leave it in the ice for maybe a few minutes or so, that should probably be all we need. All right. Love that hammer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that, again, that was a really nice score, and I'm so glad I came across that. Tommy Artmar, on the farm, we put up our meat using family recipes. I use far less Prague powder or Mormon's tender quick than in the past. We do like texture of cured meat better than without. We have cut it down. Yeah, I know. It's really on a case-by-case basis, I guess. I mean, besides, I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice, and I really can't make any kind of an official recommendation, but I do try to keep my nitrates low as well when I do this brine. As I mentioned, I used 4 teaspoons, or a little more than a tablespoon, of curing salt in this. So I was using 2 quarts of water to boil it, and in here it looks like we probably about doubled the amount, so we're talking like about a gallon or so in this brine. So there's not a lot of curing salt in here. It'll still be enough, though, to give the meat its pink color. And if folks have followed corned beef any time at all, then you probably know that gray corned beef has become popular as well, because it still tastes like corned beef. It just simply, by not using nitrates, it simply has a gray color instead of the pink color that we know for corned beef. That may drive some people away, largely because people are really afraid of things that are different or not colored the way that they expect it to be. Oh, that might even bring up that little thing that's been happening lately on. You know that I posted a short video showing myself scraping rice pagao out of a cast iron pot. The other day I made a really nice roast chicken and rice using my recipe that I've had for years for Dutch oven chicken and rice. And as I was and I posted that there. That's the one where I did a commentary on Cowboy Kent and his instructions never to use metal and cast iron. I have nothing against Kent Rollins, for the record. I mean, he's a much better chef than I am a cook. I will gladly admit that. I just find that a lot of his cast iron advice is questionable. Anyway, I posted that to YouTube, and the comments just started in. Oh, you burned that rice. You know that rice is all black and it's burned. And no, it wasn't. I said it's colored by the soy sauce, because it was. But nobody believed me. Yeah, sure. That's BS. You made burned rice there. Well, what can I say? I mean, I can say that I ate the rice. It was delicious, and it definitely was not burned. But of course, all you can do is take my word for it. So, aren't YouTube comments just so much fun? Hello, Debbie. No, you're not late. I mean, so far, and what we're looking at right now is brine that we're going to be using for preparing some corned beef. I just boiled the spices and I just poured it into a big bowl full of ice. And we will be going from there. So, and hello, yeah, as you can see, Debbie, everybody was worried about you. Concerning magnolites, different opinions, but I use Flitz polish to clean it. It doesn't scratch. Well, okay, if it works, then I would say definitely use it there. Coach Mercer from Winsboro, he's hooked to Wayne's World. Okay, on the farm. Well, no, we said that part already. Oh yeah, corned beef. Yeah, well, as I mentioned, all right, I just made some pagao with the leftover pot roast. Yeah, exactly. No, it does not look good. That's for sure. It's a crust of caramelized rice, and I know if you don't know any better, you would think it is burned rice until you taste it. Then you realize just how wonderful pagao is, and you've probably heard stories how in places like Puerto Rico, for instance, kids always fight over the pagao when they make it, and I don't blame them one bit for that. Yeah, once you've had it, again, you won't turn back. But no, it does not look pretty, that's for sure. You know how, isn't it amazing how so many of these so-called peasant dishes, that were made by the lower class, they look terrible and they taste wonderful. We can talk about pagao, we can talk about biscuits and gravy. I just saw this cute YouTube video the other day where British school children tried biscuits and gravy for the first time. So yes. Oh, well, I'm glad you like the curry rice. It's a very simple and very basic recipe, and you can, of course, add your own spices as well to make it better. But yeah, exactly. Crispy rice is a big thing in high-end cooking right now. Yeah, crispy rice, aka pagao. Hello, would you have any information on the Martin Stove and Range double skillet set? I know very little, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say. I once owned briefly a Martin Stove and Range number 8 skillet, and I gave it away as a present to a friend, and well, I didn't regret that. I do know that Martin Stove and Range, they actually, the earliest of Martin Stove and Range pots and pans had gate marks on them. But then they got rid of the gate marks and became a rather nice cast iron foundry. So Martin Stove and Range is usually very thick and very heavy. And in fact, Martin stopped making their cast iron cookware, maybe around World War II or so. They were hit by the Great Depression like a lot of companies were, and they eventually moved out of the cookware business, and they were exclusively making, like, say, gas stoves and heaters, especially heaters for homes, gas heaters. And that was their business for several decades after that, in fact. So pretty much any Martin pan that you find, cast iron pan that is, would probably be from the 1940s or earlier. That's about the best I can say in regards to Martin Stove and Range. But yeah, combo cooker aren't easy to find. I don't blame them. Yeah, no, most of them would not have a gate mark. And the ones that do are very early and very, well, rare. That's probably the best way to put it. Okay, I do believe it's time to start moving on to the next step here, which is, yet again, I've got to clean up my mess here. Okay, definitely mise en place is something I still have to work on. Here's that curing salt that we need to move to one side, measuring spoons, power cord for my phone, and as I mentioned, I reserved some of the spices because this is what we're going to be cooking the corned beef with. Certainly looks a lot more appealing, I think, than that microscopic spice package, that packet that comes with a typical thing of corned beef you get at the store. So yeah, that's another reason why I'm so psyched for this. But now, move this out of the way, damn it. And then let's get to the refrigerator, because now it's finally time to bring out the other star of the show tonight. Ugh, here we go. Oh, great. Sorry, didn't give you a very good view there, folks. Let's go for number 2. That's better. Okay, but there we are. What does the label on this thing say? It says 17 pounds. So yeah, this is a nice big hefty brisket here, and I'm definitely looking forward to brining this whole thing too. So in fact, I've got a couple of other things I got to move aside here so that we'll be able to do that. Definitely have to get my phone out of the way, and this hammer. Okay, there we go, because over here, I've prepared a tub. Let me move that up here. Over here, I prepared a tub for this. This is the same tub, in fact, that I brine my Thanksgiving turkey with, which also happened to be 17 pounds. Yeah, good thing you're only feeding yourself. Yeah, I know. What the heck am I going to do with a 17-pound brisket? Well, in fact, what I'm going to do is cut this thing into thirds. You see, for 1/3, we're going to have corned beef and cabbage on St. Patty's Day. For another third, yeah, my friends are going to come up for dinner here and we're going to have St. Patrick's Day corned beef and cabbage. The other third of this, in fact, I'm going to give to them. I promised them I would give them some corned beef from that. And then from 1/3, well, gosh darn it, I'm still going to have a whole bunch of corned beef left, which means I'm just going to have to use it and make things like Reubens, for instance, or pastrami. And oh man, that's just so much of a shame, isn't it? So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. And this is going to last a long time, especially since if anybody looked at my Facebook tonight, I made kind of like a confession that at long last, it's really time to lose weight. So yes, but I'll get to that in a little while too. On the other hand, let's get going because, hey, I get actually a chance to bring out something that I don't use as often as I'd like to. My 12-inch chef knife. And I'm looking forward to using this too. Because this is the flat, I'm thinking probably about here should be actually roughly 1/3 of it. And the others I can do smaller chunks with. So, there we go. Oh, yeah. I love having a sharp knife, especially for this reason. There we go, there's one. Actually, I just realized I made another goof. I forgot to have something to put the meat into. Always forget something. Oh boy, I know. Every week it's something, isn't it, folks? But here we go. Didn't separate yet. There we go. Here's one nice big slab of corned beef. Well, it's gonna be corned beef. Right now it's a slab of beef. And here comes the rest of this. I could probably roughly do this in half, I think. Actually, maybe a little bit less. Yeah, this will probably be enough. So let's be careful here. There we go. Just got to take nice, big, long cuts. That's why I'm using a big chef knife, so that there's less of a chance of slipping. Yeah, because no, I do not want you folks to be the ones to witness when I have an accident on camera that requires me to go to the hospital. So no, tonight is not going to be the night. Hopefully it never will. And here comes number 2. There we go. A little bit more. There we go. This is the one I will be giving to my friends. And finally comes part number 3, which is a lot of corned beef, or will be corned beef, that I'll be using for other things that use corned beef. You can make corned beef hash with this, for instance. All right, now that I've wasted that much time, let's see if we can do this right. Put this over here. I think I'll put this over here too. I'd better quickly run a sponge over here. You know, gotta keep tidy here. And break out this container. In fact, it looks like I'm going to have to raise the camera a little bit, so let's do that. Tighten this out. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Yeah, all this big mess here along the side, too. Boy, I'm sure that's really photogenic. Anyway, at this point, it's really no different, again, than taking your Thanksgiving turkey and putting it in the brine. And again, I'm using 3 big slabs of meat here. If you're just using 1, it's going to be so much easier. I mean, if you just use a big piece like this, for instance, you could easily use maybe a 1 or 2 gallon Ziploc bag, for instance. There's 1. Here comes 2. And that's another reason why I cut up this brisket. Other than because I have plans for the different parts, it also fits better into this container. And finally, 3. And this is the flat cut, which is what we will be using on St. Patrick's Day. And I think I better wash my hands. Because now, oh yeah, definitely. The brine is definitely cooled off. It's nice and cold now, so it certainly worked. Now comes the fun part. Getting the brine into here without spilling it all over the place. All right, here we go. In fact, you know what? I don't trust myself. I think I will do it in batches. And rather than pour that whole big bowl into there, here comes my measuring cup. Oh yeah, I think I'm doing the right thing. And of course, the reason why I'm using this container is just in case the bag breaks and there's an accident. Technically, you know, I could just actually fill the whole container up with the brine and probably don't even bother with the bag now that I'm thinking of it. But of course, assuming this thing doesn't break anyway, it'll be much easier to clean. Okay. Break up these big pieces now. Careful. Ugh. There we go. I'm so glad I did not just try pouring that big bowl into here. Except that now, I think we're at the point that that's exactly what I can do. Now the bowl's almost empty. There we go. Hey, guess what? I actually managed to do this without the usual chaos. Of course, the video's not over yet. We're not done yet, so I still have plenty of time to screw something up. Here's the rest of those spices. And there we go. All right. No trouble. No trouble. You do not want some of this. You probably would have wanted it before I put it in this bag, but not now. All right. Let's see. Now all we have to do is twist this as best as we can. And I just realized I probably should have gone upstairs and gotten myself a cable tie for this. But as it stands, I think I'll have to do it the hard way and just carefully tie it together. Let's try that again. And then once this is done, I'll be able to settle down and finally really have some conversation here. I know it's like this every week. I'm busy doing things and I miss your conversation. But again, please feel free to comment. I mean, that's really the whole point here. I think we got it. There we go. All right, 17 pounds of what will be corned beef. I don't even need to put the cover on it because there's really not much of a point, but from here it's going to have to go into the refrigerator. I should say one other thing. You know, most of those recipes for making homemade corned beef, they usually say every day turn the bag over. I've been doing this for years and I've never done that. I literally just put this into the refrigerator, set it, and forget it. And it comes out just fine. I have yet to have a corned beef that isn't brined enough, or one where one side is more brine than the other. It doesn't seem to work that way. It all absorbs the flavor and the spices and everything just fine, even the meat here on top. And there should not be any problem at all with this. So, okay, while we're doing that, hello, Handsome Stone. Would a hinged Griswold lid work for either Dutch oven or chicken fryer, or are the lids different? I guess you mean, will a Griswold lid fit on the Martin chicken fryer? I do not know if the measurements are exact. If you have them, I would say give them a try. But I would probably, unless you're absolutely certain, I would not go out of my way to buy a Griswold lid to go on that Martin chicken fryer. I mean, as tempting as it is, I cannot guarantee that they will fit. I'm sorry to say, I really do not know enough to be able to give an answer like that. So for that reason, you might even just want to simply use a modern day lid, just a standard glass lid that you can get at a thrift store with it, for instance, or even an iron lid, you know, a large modern day lid. That should work fine. Oh, you're saying Griswold Dutch or Griswold chicken fryer? Oh, you mean, okay, then I don't understand the question. Are you saying a Griswold Dutch oven lid should fit on a Griswold chicken fryer? Unless it's a hinged lid, and maybe even if it's a hinged lid, I would think that the dimensions should be the same. I really don't think that they made their lids in different sizes for the chicken fryer and the skillet. I mean, granted, the skillet had ears on it, so there's one difference there. Do you have two fridges? No, I'm afraid I do not. However, I do have enough room to fit this on the bottom shelf of my fridge. So I won't have any problem at all getting this in the fridge. So I certainly hope that helps. I'm hoping that's a better idea than what you mentioned. I don't need to see that. My eyes are already bad. Okay, let's brace ourselves. Brace ourselves for what? For me getting this thing into the fridge? Well, there there is certainly that possibility. Texas and Louisiana. I have my great grandpa's butcher knife that works well for big chunks of meat like that. It has a 12-inch blade. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy having little stories to tell about just about everything in my kitchen, such as this 12-inch Sabatier elephant, no less, chef's knife, because this, in fact, I found in New York City on my 50th birthday. I celebrated my 50th birthday by taking a trip to New York City just to enjoy the weekend, and I did. It was definitely the time of my life. Among other things in New York City, if anybody knows New York City and you know about the Bowery, that place there used to be one of the great meccas for cooking supplies and restaurant supply stores. It used to be one of the greatest places to go for kitchen supplies in the entire country and probably the entire world. Like everything else, pricing and rent has driven a number of those businesses away, and the Bowery is not what it used to be. But it's still a really, really great place to browse. I mean, there are at least a dozen, if not more, restaurant supply stores that I saw when I took a trip to the Bowery. And we're not just talking general supply stores. We're talking like places that exclusively dealt with mixers, for instance. Another place that exclusively dealt with cash registers, stuff like that. And there was even one supply store that, in addition to selling brand new modern stuff, they actually had a fair collection of vintage knives, including this one. And that's where, and when I saw this, again, especially since it was, well, on my birthday, it's like I could not say no to it, because I knew, again, this is an heirloom I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And I really love having excuses to bring out this big 12-inch chef knife, like tonight, for instance, so that I could cut up this brisket. So yeah, I love stories like that. I hope you do too. And oh yeah, well, this was again my 50th birthday, which was 5 years ago. Oh, in November, no less. So, how long do you cure the meats in the fridge? Okay, that's the other thing. I said this earlier today. We'll repeat it. This is and it's in the brine. I'm going to leave this in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. St. Patrick's Day. Now, the nice thing about this brine here is that you could do this. This thing can be completely done in about 5 days to 1 week, which, as I said before, is why I'm doing this tonight. I want to encourage people, give this a try. It's fun. I've had a lot of fun tonight. The results are absolutely going to be worth it. This thing is going to kick tail over the corned beef that you can buy at the store. Not that there's anything wrong with store-bought corned beef. It's only that this is so much better. And that's why, and it's really not hard to do. You saw, all I really did was boil the spices, put them together into a brine, put this in, and now here it is. And all I've got to do is let it sit in the fridge for 2 weeks. And that's the other thing again about the brine here. It's meant to preserve the meat. I'm sure there is a maximum amount of time you can leave this in a brine. I don't know what it is. I would think it might be months, maybe years. That's debatable. But as I mentioned, I once left this in my fridge for a month and took it out and had some excellent corned beef. It did not spoil because, well, again, that's what the curing salt does. It preserved it. It worked just fine. So as to how long it takes to prepare it, the minimum they say to do this is about 5 to 7 days. So you folks, if anybody here has been inspired to give this a try, you've got about a week at least to go and get yourself your ingredients to put this together and give it a try, and you'll still have a week to brine it and have it ready for St. Patrick's Day. If you want to leave it in the brine longer than that, you can certainly do that. As I just mentioned, there is no problem at all with that. So this has been, that's why, as I said, I fell in love with making homemade corned beef several years ago, the first time I tried it. And yeah, that's why I'm pushing it. You know, on my a couple of weeks ago on my YouTube channel, I was accused of pushing my agenda. Well, tonight I'm pushing my agenda, my corned beef gender, my corned beef agenda, because this is so good. It tastes wonderful. And as I mentioned already, this is so much fun to do. I really encourage you folks to give it a try, even once, and see how you like it. Have I talked enough about it yet? I wanted to learn how to do a ham that doesn't need refrigeration. I have not done a ham yet. I'm told there are so many things. I'll probably be saying this for the rest of my life. There are so many things I still need to try, and making a ham is one of them. So, I think that's salted and brown sugar. Yeah, it probably is that easy. Yes. So, I mean, I've made. What did I make? I made bacon in my fridge. I cured bacon in my fridge a few times, and I did it without nitrates. You don't, because you don't need the nitrates. They give the pink color to the meat, and they help to preserve it. But it's not absolutely necessary for the taste. I'm doing it because, well, like I said, it does have its uses, and it's traditional. Big, yeah, big corn, big gender. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, that's right. I'm being paid by Big Corn Beef to promote this agenda here. Well, I'm granted this video is monetized by YouTube, and I am getting paid some for that, but nobody is paying me exclusively to push this corned beef. I'm pushing this corned beef because I like it. It's delicious, and I would really hope that folks would want to give it a try. So, isn't cooking fun? Yes, exactly. Colibri Flyer. Hello. The best hobby to have and explore on my retirement, and I fully agree with you on that. I said enough times for up until only about 12 years ago, you know, when I was 42. I think. I would have told you I could not cook to save my life. I spent my whole life like that. And then I caught the cooking bug and learned to cook. And it's definitely one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I've got a skill that I will definitely be using for the rest of my life. I mean, when do you not, I mean, you will always have opportunities and need to cook for pretty much your entire life. So, especially since, yeah, I also mentioned already on Facebook tonight, yeah, check out my Facebook, that, yeah, I'm committing myself to losing some weight. Finally. So, and I'm doing this on Facebook especially to kind of like have the incentive. If I keep it to myself, I'm never gonna, I've been trying to do it for at least a couple of years now. So I really need that incentive by posting it publicly on Facebook. I'm hoping I have the incentive to really stick to it. And yeah, but yes, exactly. That's, as you said, cooking is fun, and it is really useful. I mean, I really enjoy this, and I'm so glad I learned how to cook. I don't trust myself. Been too long ago. I don't remember. That's why I use YouTube to remember. Yeah, exactly. That's just it. Congratulations. Oh, did I make 50,000? I didn't think I made 50,000 yet. I thought it was at 49. Did something happen? Let me check my YouTube if you don't mind, because if I made 50,000, I will be as surprised as you. Cancel. No, I don't want to do that. Let's open up a new tab. There we go. And let's see what it says here. Because as I said, if I did make 50,000, I will be shocked. And unfortunately, no, I have not. In fact, I am at 48.8. So I still have about 1,200 subscribers to go before I make 50,000. But yes, nonetheless, though, oh, well, rounding up. Okay, well, thank you very much. And actually, I can only agree with that. I mean, I've had this channel for 10 years, and it's been growing very slowly, but it has been growing. And of course, it's because of all of you folks that it's been growing. And you know what? We're getting it to around that time as well, and that's where I guess I could say, yeah, you'll get your YouTube wall hanging. I think you get that at 100,000 subscribers. So I still have several years to go before that because I've been growing very slowly. I recognize I'm a niche channel here. I'm still an amateur. I'm definitely not making professional quality videos. I'm doing pretty much for the fun of it. Even though I am monetized through YouTube, it's not, I mean, so far I have not taken sponsors, for instance. I've gotten offers for sponsors, and, well, that's my business. But that's another reason why I don't know if I'll ever make that point. But nonetheless, I've been having fun. And especially lately, since I've been doing these live videos, I've said this enough times. You know what really makes this a lot of fun is you folks here. You folks being here on YouTube Live. I mean, just doing these live videos, knowing you folks are here and commenting and watching and I hope enjoying yourselves. That is really a great reason for doing this. I say this every week because I mean it every week. This is really what makes this so much fun, is having you folks here. I mean, this is a wonderful hobby to have. Cooking is so much fun, but I mean, again, sharing this on YouTube with you folks is even more fun, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm very glad to do it. So I can only thank everybody here for showing up like always. So cast iron back in style. Well, I certainly hope so. But other than that, as I said, yeah, the best tasting steaks are cooked in my cast iron pans. Oh, no argument about that. I've told my story about the very first time I cooked in cast iron, where I cooked a steak and I turned it into a piece of leather, and I had so much fun doing it. So sorry I've been so sparse with comments. Had a meeting. No, not to worry, Val. I mean, nobody's forcing you to do anything. I can only thank you very much for showing up. And likewise with everybody else. Jerry, 1952. If that many people subscribe, where the heck are they? Well, it's possible they may have subscribed several years ago and might not even know it. So, but yes, thank you everybody for showing up as always. You know, like Val's Black Cats Rules and Papa Dan and Rick Stumbow, Cynthia Wesley and Debbie and hello Rocket Caber and everybody else here. So as I said, you folks are really what make this worthwhile. So that means now we get to get this thing into the oven, and then oven. I just said oven. Get this thing into the fridge, and then well, that's what time to call it a night. So let's move over here, get some room here so I don't trip over cables and stuff. Told you this is an amateur channel. This is definitely not professional quality. There we are. As you can see, for instance, the wires on the floor, all of this cat food here sitting by the fridge. All right, and now comes the fun part. Oh boy. This is a 17-pound brisket, not to mention all of this ice and water here. So this thing probably weighs 25 pounds, I would think. Oh boy. So in we go. And this is what I mean. I have plenty of room on the bottom shelf. I made sure to clear it off. And there it is. All right. That wasn't hard. There we go. And that is that. All right. Especially since we are getting into time, folks, because I have said this, but the simple fact is this is Wednesday night. It's a work evening for so many people, including me, that I really can't do this forever, unfortunately. And besides, we've accomplished what we set out to do. This was a lot more successful than last week when I made that shawarma, that's for sure. The shawarma turned out good, yes, but I feel I could have really improved it. This, on the other hand, went about as good as it could, other than me getting ice chips all over the place, that is. But, I mean, hey, as I mentioned, we've done a brine. We've got a whole lot of beef in the brine now, and that means come St. Patrick's Day, when my friends come over to visit, we will be having corned beef and cabbage. I'll even be able to give them a nice big hunk of corned beef to do what they want with, and I will have a nice big hunk of corned beef after that, where I can use it to make corned beef hash, or pastrami, or Reubens, or so many other things. And My mouth is already watering at that. So this has been a lot of fun, and I'll say only for the last time, I hope this inspires some folks to give it a try, because it's so much fun. And thank you, everybody, once again for showing up here. I mean, as I mentioned already, that's really what makes this so much fun here. So here on YouTube Live, and thank you for everybody. Hello, Clico. Am I pronouncing your name right? I always forget. And Harold Farmer and Rolling Pastures Farm, Kimberly Miller and Randy Duffy and Joseph Ortiz and so many others. And here come the live bloopers. Yes, exactly. Yeah, you get to see a lot of those every week, that's for sure. So, and hey, let's do one more thing with this. As I mentioned already, I was proud of this, and as you can see, I got some use out of it tonight. As I mentioned, this was a flea market find for $4, and boy, was this ever a treasure here. I had to clean it up, and I seasoned it exactly like a cast iron, and that's why it's black, in fact, because it's seasoned. And again, it says here, it says here, combination tool with a patent date of 1928. And I got this at a flea market because I was going on a camping trip and I needed a tent stake hammer, and I found this instead, and boy, am I not regretting it. This thing here is nice and solid and sturdy and heavy, and I'm so glad to have found it, which I guess is another good reason to keep going on the hunt, because you never know what you're going to find, and that's what makes it so much fun. Okay, and where are Trouble and Miss Mobley? They're actually relaxing upstairs. I saw them before this began tonight. So, but anyway, yeah, my brother has the same kind of cast iron radiators in his house. He has a gas boiler and a wood burning. Nice. That might be for horseshoeing. As a matter of fact, that's what another friend of mine identified this for. He said this is, in fact, a horseshoeing tool, and he identified that from the way the bottom is shaped, and because apparently this part here at the top is also crucial for the horseshoes. Be that as it may, it still makes a wonderful hammer, so I certainly don't have any complaints about that. All right. And it's definitely time to get going, so I can only thank everybody for showing up one last time, because, as I said, this has been a lot of fun. Next week is what we normally would do the first week of the month. Next week it's time again to take a guided tour of the rack, and this is where we're going to do a nice cast iron Q&A, where I get to fend off all of your questions about everything I have there in my cast iron collection, and hopefully we'll have some fun next week. So thank you, everybody, for showing up once again, and we will do this all over in another week. So, as I like to say, because again, this is from my favorite movie, 2001. See you next Wednesday.